for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams, ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
The Trump administration has agreed to pay nearly $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt. She is the MAGA rioter who was shot and killed by police after she breached the Capitol on January 6th. The officer who was involved was later cleared of criminal wrongdoing. In a statement today, the Capitol Police Chief said he's disappointed with the settlement and that it, quote, sends a chilling message to law enforcement nationwide, especially to those with a protective mission like ours. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table is Harry Dunn, a former U.S. Capitol Police officer who was there on January 6th. Harry, great to see you. Thanks for being here. Look, this is unbelievable in a way, especially if you were there. We covered it. To see this moment rewarded with a $5 million settlement, when we checked, we tried to see, were there officers who were injured, those who died as a result of their injuries or other aspects of their service on January 6th? Did they get anything? No settlements for those folks.
Not even money, but just even an acknowledgement. I'm just thinking about Brian Sicknick. His mother still waiting for a call from the president. Look, it's under no circumstances, should anybody's death be celebrated or somebody lost their daughter, somebody lost a sister or mother, and it's unfortunate that somebody lost their life there. But what message does it send that an individual, if she lived, she would have been charged. She would have been charged with a crime. She would have been a criminal. What message does that send out there to not just everyday citizens, but to people other criminals at the Capitol who may have been sprayed by police or may have been hit by police? Do they get to sue and now be rewarded because their record's clean?
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
There has been a tremendous amount of disinformation and misinformation on both sides, both conservatives trying to minimize the violence that existed outside the Capitol on January 6th and liberals trying to overblow what happened on January 6th to try to separate it from other violent incidents both at the Capitol and around America that are, protest and free speech, violence masquerading as protest and free speech. Officer Dunn, there's been lots of videos that have called into question his stories, and he regurgitated, and the CNN host regurgitated more than him, this falsity that officers died as a result of injuries that day. That is a pervasive dishonesty that has lingered for years now, and it's absolutely not true. You did have some officers commit suicide, but there was no officer that died during January 6th, during the riots, or that died as a result of the injuries from the riots. That's a falsehood. The only person that died that day because of that incident was Ashley Babbitt. And the question is, was it fair for the Trump administration, Department of Justice, to agree to pay her family $5 million after the Justice Department under the Biden administration had determined no laws were broken? And I think it fundamentally goes to the question, and we've also had Deputy Director Bongino and Director Kash Patel say in the last week that they are going to release more information about January 6th. Including the involvement or alleged involvement of undercover instigators from federal law enforcement that were pushing people to go and enter the Capitol, which those on the right have long said that's what happened, and they've also said many people were just let in to walk around, and of course they point the finger at other things. But here's the real question. I know you're yawning because you don't want to talk about the facts, but there's long been an argument that from the evidence at the time that either Ashley was trying to intrude into this barricaded, secure area where elected officials were hiding. She was obviously unarmed, and whether or not it was appropriate for the officer to shoot and kill her at point-blank range. And of course, if you're trying to protect elected officials from violent intruders, I think obviously it was lawful. There's those that argue instead, and lawyers focusing on it, that in fact that she wasn't intruding, that she was pulling people back from that attempted intrusion. And if that's the case, then that would make a very compelling argument for a lawsuit.
Well, it's amazing how you white folks come up with every excuse under the
me.
sun to justify,
just
have
me.
empathy and sympathy for your white criminals committing crimes and pay the price with their life. This lady was committing a crime on January the 6th. Then you bring up these agent provocateurs and agent infiltrators who put themselves into the crowd per instructions.
Well, we should
and
know what
orders.
that happened.
Let me finish. Operation COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover against black organizations, black activists, and leaders.
Can we talk about
They had
this
specific
incident?
instructions to always infiltrate the protesters. And they had specific instructions to create agitation and encourage the protesters to commit crimes so they could come back later and arrest the leaders of these civil rights marches.
I agree.
Now, all of a sudden, the white woman and her cohorts on January 6th, they are the victims of this same agent provocateur setup. They go in there, commit these crimes. She dies in the process, and I hate that she died because I don't think that she really should have been shot because she was unarmed. But she was committing a crime. And so now...
So we should just...
So now she gets $5 million.
Okay.
Charles, you and I both know this is sending a message.
We were just talking about George Floyd. His family got $30 million, $28 million.
He pardoned every member of the January 6th rioters, even the violent ones.
Even the violence.
Even when he said that we will not pardon the violent ones, he pardoned all of them. So what does this do? So what does this do now?
Well,
so those who were convicted of those crimes at the Capitol that day, they can turn around and file a civil lawsuit now against the Trump administration,
so were you upset?
Alleging that they were victimized and that they need compensation also. Charles, this is insane because had she survived and not been shot, she'd have been arrested.
Okay.
She'd have been charged.
Okay.
She'd have been in prison like the rest of them were charged. So now, if she can now be compensated, her estate, her family can be compensated about $205 million. This opens the door for others to do so. And what message is Trump sending with this? He's sending a message to his base that not only do I approve of what you did on January 6th, I'm grateful for what you did on January 6th, and I'm going to look out for you.
Okay, well, I mean,
that's what he's saying.
Or the question could be they've seen evidence that they disagree with the argument that she was trying to intrude. We don't know. But at the end of the day, when you're settling a lawsuit, right, which is unique, right? I didn't see any. It's like we talked about George Floyd early in the week, because the anniversary is coming up. That $28 million number, it was insane, right? It was way outside the bounds of typical settlements. And I didn't hear any complaint from you whenever you have African-American criminals actively committing a crime and then they're killed by law enforcement and they sue and there's settlements. That's a far more common. It's a far more common settlement. It happens all across America all the time.
So you're trying to,
right?
You're trying to use dog whistle language now. Who you're talking about? Tell us who you're talking about.
Hold on. The Biden administration and a number of state administrations and
Paid
a bunch
who?
of city managers.
Paid
right?
who?
Well, civil rights lawyers who have filed lawsuits.
You and I both know lawyers always get paid, and often the people get shafted.
Hold on. Here's the thing. Right, so when they're doing the math, the only question that the Department of Justice should have been asking in determining to hand out our tax dollars, which I am in disagreement, right? I think if the evidence supports that she was trying to intrude into a barricaded, secure area protecting politicians, then it was a lawful shooting and we shouldn't be paying anybody anything of our tax dollars. But I also think we've wasted a whole lot of tax dollars paying out bogus civil rights claims for a few decades now, but that's a whole different story.
Which are the bogus ones?
But there's tons of bogus ones.
Name some.
Hold on, we're talking
which
about
black
Ashley
person
Babbitt.
died or was abused by police that you felt was a bogus claim they got paid for? Because that's really what you're trying to say.
No, but here's the thing. You were saying because this unarmed woman got shot and she shouldn't get paid
in the
because she was
commission
committing
of a crime.
So is it your position now that every person that dies at the hand of law enforcement because they're committing a crime,
here's my permission.
That's okay.
Here's my perspective.
That's okay.
And here's my opinion.
Okay.
If you're committing a crime and putting somebody else's life in danger in the commission of that crime,
how is she
then
doing
deadly
that?
force is justified.
Okay, how is she putting someone's
if
life in danger?
she's breaking in the Capitol trying to get to elected officials,
hold
on.
Well, that's speculation.
While people behind her chatting, hang Pence, hang him, and she trying to break in there. So if she's trying to break in there where they're being protected and they're chanting, let's hang them.
Okay, but we've seen all
Hell
types
no,
of
you got to
videos.
shoot her too.
We've seen tons of videos of people being allowed into the Capitol building. We've also had tons of other
because those
protests
cops
and
got
takeovers
scared.
and sit-ins
Because
and
those
all
cops
kind of
got
stuff.
very scared.
Okay, But what we do, it's all speculation and conjecture on your part that she was in the process of putting people in harm's way.
If she's breaking into a restricted area,
right?
While her cohorts are chanting, "Let's get them and hang them. Let's hang them." How the hell you figure that's not the justifiable shooting?
There's no evidence that that's what they were chanting behind.
Oh, yes, it is.
No,
they were chanting, "Let's hang Mike Pence." They were chanting, "Let's go get Pence." They were chanting, "Let's hang Nancy Pelosi." Let's go get Nancy Pelosi. So I guess you think the people in that room couldn't hear that?
I think there were a bunch of lunatics, right? But it is conjecture and speculation for you to say that this is what that Ashley Babbitt was trying to facilitate. I would say I absolutely agree that this is a pander by the Trump administration with the American tax dollars to his base by saying, hey, I'm paying this family. My argument is that the only math should be, because they were seeking 30 million, right? They were seeking a number equivalent to
30 million. What George Floyd family was seeking 28 million, right?
Well, I think what Floyd's family got was 28, but they were seeking 30 as well. So the question that the lawyers should be asking is, what is the likelihood of success of this claim, and how much might we have to pay?
You know it would not have won, Charles. You know that.
Yeah, I don't think it would have either.
It would not have won, Charles.
I don't
you know
think
that.
it would have either. So
Trying to sue the government of the United States, you and I both know that wasn't going nowhere.
Well, my thing is, you seem to only have an issue with it because it was a black woman.
No, Charles. What I have an issue with, Charles, is that this man, Mr. Trump, then paid a woman committing a crime.
Obama painted all kind of
and hold on, Charles,
claims.
While committing an insurrection.
I don't think
Charles, while attempting to overthrow an elected sitting president,
I don't
Charles.
think there was any effort
Charles,
to overturn.
that was an act of treason.
Well,
and then we financially reward these people. And what's shocking to me is he took the most violent ones. Listen, Charles,
I agree.
The most violent ones who was in prison talking crazy, saying that when I get out, they all gonna pay. When I get out, their enemies, they will pay the price. And then one of them got out and tried to kill a cop and got killed. And now you got another one with the Proud Boys who's talking about who's gonna pay and how they gonna make them pay. And he's released all these people.
These guys are all a bunch of radicalized idiots.
If these were black folks on January 6th, not one damn one of them would have been paid for committing crime.
But that's absolutely, that hasn't borne itself out in the
Charles,
last 10 years.
Ain't no black folks would have stormed the United States Capitol and got paid for it.
That's absolutely not true. We've seen all
because
sorts.
Negroes know better than to storm the United States Capitol. Because trust me, the cops, when they ran away, they'd have killed all of us.
We have seen all sorts of leftist civil unrest at federal buildings in Washington, D.C., across this country, to the point of arson and burglary and looting.
Not by black people.
Tons of black people.
Them little white anarchists.
Okay.
Them little white Antifa members that you're talking about. Not black people.
The Pacific Northwest was under siege, right? We had autonomous zones in Seattle.
By rich suburban little white Antifa kids, not them poor black folk. Don't try that.
We saw that. Or on Trump's first inauguration in 2016, right? We saw in Washington, D.C., there was a tremendous amount of violence. Every single case was ultimately dismissed by the Department of Justice.
Now, you say tremendous amount of violence, what do you mean?
They were rioting and burning cars and destroying property.
Charles,
and those were
everybody. When you commit crimes, you should be held accountable. Okay. Not giving $5 million for it.
I agree.
Not giving $5 million for it.
Let's have that be a universal rule.
$5 million, Charles.
Let's have that be a universal rule.
And she was committing a crime. Stop,
I don't think she should have got money, but you seem to only
he ain't got no problem with the white folk getting paid.
No, I'm saying I don't think she should get paid.
They real sympathetic and empathetic with them white folk committing crimes.
Again, I don't think she should have got any money.
Black
but
folk,
I don't think other criminals should be getting money.
And think they gonna pay one of us.
That was the moment outside of an immigration detention center in Newark where the Justice Department claims a Democratic Congresswoman, LaMonica McIver, assaulted a federal agent. She is strongly disputing the charges. Justice correspondent Scott McFarland is following this and joins us now. Scott, so what is the government saying?
And Naked Morning, we could see those charging documents as early as this morning in this case of 38-year-old LaMonica McIver, a first-term Democrat from New Jersey. The video from earlier this month outside the Delaney Immigration Facility shows the confrontation. Federal agents, McIver, a couple other members of Congress, and Newark Mayor Ross Baraka. The group was there for a routine inspection of the facility, but after Baraka was arrested, the scuffle ensued. McIver calls this a purely political prosecution and says it was the agents who created an unnecessary and unsafe confrontation. The misdemeanor case against Baraka was dropped Monday by the U.S. attorney. She said for the sake of moving forward. But at the same time, the U.S. attorney announced this assault prosecution of McIver. The Department of Homeland Security argues the group stormed the gates and that no one is above the law. But
in this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, a New Jersey Congresswoman has now been indicted by the Justice Department, Congresswoman McIver, and she's been indicted for what took place when her and a delegation of elected officials went to a facility that deals with ICE operations, etc., wanting to inspect the facility, a detention facility, I believe it was, to inspect it and do a wellness check, something to that degree. They were invited in, and they were kept there for over an hour with no response. Then they were escorted out. And it was only after they were escorted out and the gates were closed that they came back out and engaged the protesters for whatever reason may be. But both sides are disputing the actual facts of what took place. So now they've charged this Congresswoman with assault. Based on what I saw in those videos, unless there's some other video that we haven't seen that's not been released, this sets a dangerous precedent, man. You arrest a mayor, then you drop his charges, Mayor Baraka, we talked about that on this show, and then you dismiss it saying for the purpose of moving forward, but you move forward with this indictment on assault of a federal officer, a federal agent, against a sitting congressman, which carries an absolute prison sentence. This concerns me, Charles.
Okay, so Alina Habba, she became known because she was one of the criminal defense attorneys for the current president and at the time former president during the state prosecution. She's now the U.S. attorney for New Jersey. She was, Baraka, the way it happened is Congress people were allowed in. The mayor of Newark was not a part of the group that was supposed to be allowed in, so he was instructed to leave. They left, and then afterwards they went out to arrest him for trespass, right? And that led to this, what we saw on the video cameras very clearly a, commotion, a struggling match where they were trying to physically prevent the agents from affecting the arrest of the mayor of Newark. And the truth is that under the law, they absolutely don't have the right to do it. I think there was a much more difficult case against Mayor Baraka because I think he was allowed in and then told to leave, and he followed those instructions and was arrested. So I don't think they would have gotten very far in the prosecution for trespass. This is completely different. She has been charged with a count of assaulting and a count of resisting and impeding an immigration and customs enforcement agent. If you watch the video, she is very clearly shoving and pushing the agents back.
Everybody's pushing. Everybody's shoving.
But the thing
from
is,
behind and in front.
But she's not allowed to do it, right? It's
if the agents are shoving, yes, she can.
No.
If they're shoving, yes, she can.
Stop saying this to our audience.
No, Charles, an agent does
allowed.
not have a right to put their hands on you if you have not committed a crime.
Okay.
No, they do not.
Again, they were trying to effect the arrest of the mayor of Newark because they'd been instructed by their supervisors to arrest him for trespass. They are acting under the color of the law. They are allowed to act like that. It is not legal to physically impede these ICE agents and shove and push them. It's a crime, and you don't need to tell our audience that it's okay to do it. If she's willing to fade the heat, it's a whole different deal.
Listen to me.
But clearly,
I didn't see anything that justifies this level of a charge against this particular Congresswoman. This carries a prison sentence.
It's not a particularly serious charge.
Yes, it is.
It's not a
no, assaulting a federal agent carries a prison sentence.
I understand.
That's not true.
But this one, first of all, I can't imagine they will successfully prosecute this.
I can't imagine that they would even indict her on this, Charles.
But there's video.
But the fact that they are
there's video
says
of her
a lot.
breaking the law. And I think what the Trump administration is trying to do is they're trying to draw this line, just like we saw all these attacks on Tesla dealerships and all these attacks on Teslas that were driven just by idiots that thought it's okay to go tear somebody else's stuff up. And they said, this is terrorism, we're going to prosecute people. I think what we're seeing is a rash of people think it is okay to direct violence at ICE agents for them trying to do their jobs.
I think the Trump administration has a real problem with outspoken black women.
Okay.
Just a week ago, he arrested a black female judge, alleging that she was hindering ICE agents from performing their duties and arresting those who are immigrants.
There's tremendous.
Charles,
I think first of all,
and the first thing you're gonna do is sit there and try.
It was
Charles,
a white judge, and I think there's a tremendous amount of evidence she committed that crime.
But you are putting elected officials in jail, and then this the same man.
I think elected officials should be held to an even higher standard than regular citizens.
But Trump administration is now saying this: whatever ruling a federal judge makes in regards to immigration that we don't like, we ain't got to listen to him.
Oh yeah, I disagree
what
with that.
Message does that send to the American people?
The Supreme Court.
If you can ignore the law and literally say that you are above the law, and then the Trump administration went so far as to say they ain't got to listen to the Supreme Court. Well, when you have a sitting president and his administration say that we ain't got to listen to the Supreme Court,
but they're not. They got slapped down by the conservative-leaning
And what
court.
was their response? We ain't got to listen to them.
Absolutely not true.
What message is that sending to the American people?
Okay, we have
that
seen
you just ignore judges.
This whole characterization. The Obama administration and President Obama was very clear about his animosity for the Supreme Court, and to the point where there were elected officials encouraging violence be directed at Supreme Court justices, right? We had, Antifa protests. We had somebody go to the door of Justice Kavanaugh, and we had Democrats cheering it, applauding it. And now it's these same Democrats that are pearl clutching.
Respect the rule of law when the president himself says we don't have to listen to him?
Why should elected officials or just regular citizens respect the rule of law when they think they can go shove ICE agents and there's not going to be a consequence?
But the president's telling the whole damn country we ain't got to listen to him.
She broke the law on video.
So what are we headed to now? Where are we headed now? With this level of thinking in America, where are we headed?
Well, what we saw was when Trump lost the election, we saw the Biden administration throw every charge they could at him.
And that was wrong as hell.
Okay.
That was wrong as hell.
That's it for the Face Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.